the wilderness within you, the 40th day of Lent, which is Palm Sunday. 2 readings today, both from the New Revised Standard Version. First from John chapter 9, verses 13 to 16. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. And then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, and now I see." And some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." From the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 57 to 68. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death. But they found none, although many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days.'" And the high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus said, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." And then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" After church, we walk up over the hill, then along to the corner shop to buy some croissants. Hot croissants and a pot of coffee are what this day, with its razor-sharp east wind, needs. I must confess, I feel a bit embarrassed suggesting Sunday shopping to Jesus of all people, but he doesn't seem overly bothered. Then it's just across the road and through the valley via the park, home to put the oven on and boil a kettle. Oh, the fragrance of that coffee. Oh, the crispy shell of those croissants and their soft, doughy insides. Oh my, I will never make an ascetic. Jesus sits on a kitchen stool at our table, licking butter off his fingers with that rapt absorption I like to see. Makes me happy. He's not much of an ascetic either. So I ask him, "Why did you need to go out into the wilderness?" I know in the case of most people, It would be a searching for God thing, finding their true self, connecting with mystery, getting in touch with the eternal and whatnot. But surely, in your case, well, I mean, you are actually that thing, aren't you? The way, the truth, and the life. What's to connect with? And for that matter, why would I need to go into the wilderness either? Can't I just go to church? His eyes are brown, and they look at you in a rather penetrating way. It's to do with belief structures, he says. Explain? I pour him some more coffee to go with his second croissant. Jesus likes milky coffee. I'm surprised he's not fat, he likes everything. In the temple, in the synagogue, in the church, he says, with a kind of reluctant tone, like he'd rather not be putting this into words, there's always a Pharisee handy, with a set of belief structures, with the primary purpose of making people wrong. Belief structures? My turn to lick fingers free of butter. Don't they matter then? Dogma? Doctrines? Creeds? Anything goes, you mean? Jesus shakes his head. Not that. He drinks his coffee, thinking. It's more that, well, it's primarily about lived experience, don't you see? Not so much about doctrine. Not really about what you know. Or at least it's about knowing, but knowing someone, not something, a different kind of knowing. And the trouble arises when belief structures, rules, dogma, creeds, come first. If they do that, then they inhibit experience. It's meant to be the other way round. They're meant to express or explain experience, not determine it. When they come first, they get in the way, cramp your style. How can you be yourself with someone if you come into their presence with a manual detailing what you must say and how you must regard them, what you must conclude about them, what you must not dare to think? How can you truly give yourself to someone in love if you're afraid of him? Afraid of getting it wrong? He dabs around his plate with his finger, picking up the last delicious remnants of crumbs. I watch him, his eyelashes, the tumbling hair, the soft rough, homespun, undyed wool of his clothes. So very real. The point of wilderness is to forget all of that. It is to give you the privacy of silence and space, a place where preconceptions cease, where you reach the end of yourself. And then the Father, whose quietness is a step further down yet from silence, can make himself known. And it will not be awful, whatever they've told you. His love is simple and kind. He loves you. He looks up suddenly and grins at me. Thank you, he says. That was scrumptious.